Okay, so thank you for joining me today for restorative. This is going to be a specific circulation in the beginning for the breathing muscles. That's kind of a typical start plan for me, but I want you to have a belt at the back of your mat. So the back of your mat's going to have the two blankets and the belt that's unbuckled right behind you. I would just kind of layer it on the blanket so it'll be very easy for you to find, because once you're on your back, you're sort of in a little bit of a vulnerable position for kind of knowing what's around you. So when you lower back, the wall spaces a little bit away from you. You don't want your feet pushing into it. If they happen to touch lightly, that's great, but nothing more than that. We don't want our legs up the wall. So you'll take a block. You'll be sitting in front of the horizontal bolstering position. I have to be careful not to say a flat, because some of you don't have a flat on this one. You got your sandbag nearby, or a bag of rice. And when you lean back into your elbows, I want you to set your feet so they're alike. They say you can see the inside line of your feet, right? From the heel inside line to the toes, or if you have socks on, the inside line. And when you lean back, I want you to push into your feet and push into your elbows. Now, if you're tall, this could be a little bit more of a workout, but you're going to push down and lift up the buttocks. Okay, let them lift so they're hovering off the floor. And then ease the elbows forward, slide them forward, get the block, one block flat. Lift your hips up and slide it under, and then lower your head back to your blankets and scoot the block right up to the bolster next to it, not on top. It could be perceived as that. Okay, so the block is on the ground. Now, some days the block doesn't feel like as large, like I feel like I'm over the block, but it is there and it's nice and firm to support the tailbone zone. So when the tailbone zone, you want to lean down so you can feel, or lie back so you can feel the arena of the tailbone near that block. Doesn't need to make a dent. And then you're going to add your sand. Be kind to your shoulders, right? All these little ligaments and tendons, be slow about dragging it across. Doesn't take much to pull something sometimes. So when you get the sand, you want to loosen that up. I suppose if you actually had a bag of rice, some of those are packed nicely, so you wouldn't have to do this ruffling around or rustling. But when you layer that sand, it's across the front of the hip bone so that when my knees are in this comfy position, just bending, I notice how the pelvis feels more pressure because of the sand. I think you got that. But now you want to feel how the ribs move with the breath. Back up so you don't go too fast on this one. And then as the arms settle out, before you get your belt, I know you need that soon, then see if you can start to creep the feet down towards letting the legs lengthen. If you touch a wall, it's okay. Just don't overly lift your feet up at the wall. I can see this one would be nice sometimes to have maybe a full blanket or towel under the feet, but I'm not going to add that on now. The reason being is the extension of the knees. So if you feel like it's very obvious one leg is pushing and you're hyperextending, you could put the sand higher up on the torso, right? Because that's going to only press it deeper. But what I want you to feel is this orientation of the pelvis. You could certainly bend your knees during this too. So if you want to bend the knees the whole time, this is the choice. But here we go. We'll get the belt. And as we get a hold of that, we slide the hands out wide and feel that your elbows are a little wider than the blanket. Okay, so that's a pretty distant position for the chest muscles. I don't even associate with the chest muscles in the beginning. I notice when I deepen the breath, then I start to correspond with my upper lungs. Okay, this one feels like I want to bend my knees a little bit. So emphasize the breathing cycle, not so much how the body pose is accentuated with things like straight legs, but the emphasis of the ribs. So I'm trying to expand the ribs on the in-breath. They might lift up, they might push out. It's a new day and it does change a little bit from day to day. But when you're holding onto the belt, kind of orient the muscles in the arms. So those are kind of easy to tack onto, but it's the ribs you're trying to balance. So slow, deep breath. If your head feels like it's pushed up too high, you can always take one of the blankets out. I'd rather have you more of a lift of the chin than a chin down to the chest. A better posture for the neck. And so if you're having to push your head back, right? If you're really having to work that so your chin doesn't push down to your chest, then take a moment and move the blanket and just see if it's better for you. So as the arms are holding, keep the bend into the arms so the elbows feel like they're touching down to the ground. And then I would just slide the belt up so it's right over, right above your head. It's not on your forehead, but that would be funny, huh? But you want the belt right behind your head so you can kind of notice that in the beginning. You'll let go of it. And then let the arms open out so the elbows are slightly bent and the shoulders center back. Let's take about 4 breaths here. Right, you might lower the legs down, you might bend them. And if the fingers are relaxed, you'll have opportunity to let the shoulders center. It's fairly complex, isn't it? And then keeping it simple, going to bend both legs. So slide the feet in, substantial slide in of the feet. So the knees are perked up. And then you'll notice differences in the arch on probably each side of the back or the hip. It just depends on your energy into the differences on your sides. But when you slide the sand away, let's take a belt and we'll reach the hands to hold it and lift the belt towards the ceiling. Of course, I'm pulling it outwards. And as you lift up that right knee, I want you to guide it towards the belt, but move the belt towards the knee, okay? And then alternate, arms stretch back, and it's 2 arms, right? And alternating the left leg joint towards the belt towards the leg. Probably the arms moving to the leg is more movement, right, than the knee is doing, right? Because you want to feel when you alternate that there's an exhale when you lift up. Okay, and take the feet a little wider. Okay, not that anyone's doing anything wrong, but just feel this alternating pattern with the feet wider. But you don't want to pull the knee to the kind of the navel center area. You want to still keep it at that width when you move it in. So energetically, you decide how far you move both of the directions. Even when you stretch the arms behind you, you might not go all the way back. You might like to feel the strength work going on into the breathing muscles. Okay, last time, each side, I don't know what round you're on, but we're basically timing this one for about 1.5 minutes. Okay, and consciously feel when the foot touches down and then stretching the arms back. I would keep the belt. I think you might want to put it over to the side so you'll have an easy reach of it either side of you, okay? So now when you walk the feet in, we're going to actually reach for the bolster. Okay, actually first thing, you're going to move your blanket back if you have two still, but have one blanket under your head. The bolster gets moved a very small amount. Don't over push your bolster. So lift up the heels, feel the neck, the stretch of the neck. So I notice that if my head is back on the one blanket, I'm going to stretch out my neck, let it lengthen. That means let it go. And then walk the feet in as close as I can. If it hurts your knees, let the feet be a little wider. You don't want to cause that pressure. And then I lift up my hips, very slight, and I push the bolster down. Well, that worked right away. Lift up the feet. Now, if you find, well, I feel like I need more underneath me, then you just push the bolster down. But it's harder to get the bolster back up under you. It's easier to push it downward. So give it a try when the feet are up and the back muscles are centered on the bolster. And then get a hold of a block or ball between the knees. And as you place that center, I want you to feel how the feet lift and the management of the circulation now in your upper body, into your hips. You want this to be solid hip strength. Real important you don't feel this hurting your knees at all. So when you push into the ball or block, the block might be in some way a little easier because it's not a responsive surface, so you just kind of hold it and that's it. You don't have to keep pushing. But as the arms open out, you let the knees, you'll just circle. I don't want you to take them side to side specifically yet, but circle. Use the core muscles, right, which could be front, it could be posterior. They're both core bands. Go both directions. Yeah, try to make sure the ball doesn't fall out here. You have to measure your intensity of holding on to it. Okay, now once the circles get into balance, each side, you're going to move the knees over to the right and let the waist gently stretch. Oh, I happen to have a block over there, so I don't want anything under my knee right now on the right side. So I'll slide it a little bit away. But how far should you go is going to be dependent on the chest muscles. So when I go right, I want to keep my left shoulder down. That's tricky, isn't it? You bend in your elbow and then push the right leg into the blocker ball and then come back center. Okay, and center it for a moment. Keep the neck long. Relax the throat and legs over to the left. Okay, and feel how the right shoulder, I feel a little different on each side with the shoulder band. And these are nice to work on your very simplified ways of organizing your inner self, right? Your physiological self patterns of balance. So feel when the knees go left. I think this will be one that we want to do each side twice. So notice if it's waist that's stretching, if it's ribs, if it's chest for you on the side, and then come back in center. Okay, and then you're going to move the knees over to the right. And your best option is to feel the left shoulder down. Let's say your shoulder doesn't stay down, then you would not go as far over with the knees. Some people might find they barely move to the right. It's just a little bit. And then once they go, the shoulder goes up. So you want to keep moving on, stretching out your ribs, getting more flexible in your breathing muscles. And then that'll help the flexibility of the spine. It's probably the easiest place to start. Most of us don't complain of a tired breathing muscle. Might be a tired back, but not so much the breathing muscles. So come back and center. Left you go. Last side, but feel that you're trying to keep a balance with the shoulders. Maybe you roll your head to the right. Yeah, there's always something to improve on this. If you slow down and feel, you might notice your breathing is labored in a twist. You almost forget this is a twist, huh? Okay, come back and center. Squeeze inwards with the legs. If you need to kind of shimmy your shoulders or try to find where you're balanced. Maybe your clothes aren't balanced. It might be that. Okay. Now keep the motion of the legs pushing in. Okay, try that motion in towards your chest. Okay. So for me, my neck gets naturally a little bit more stretch when my knees go to the chest. It stretches the whole spine much further. So let's use our belt. We're going to move the blocker ball out. Then we'll get our belt. Yeah, it's on the side. Okay. So we're going to do first, we're going to let the band or the belt go under the foot. Okay. Then the right foot goes up. So right foot start. Okay. Now let the knees be kind of next door to each other. One leg is drooping foot. Okay. The drooping foot side. And you decide here. Now, for me, I'm finding, I'm not so sure this blanket needs to be this high. I'm trying to decide how my neck is experiencing this. So what I want you to follow is that when the left leg goes down without a sandbag, okay, I actually like the block underneath my left leg, but you might not even have it there anymore. But pull and feel how gravity, this pull, the pulling pattern is experienced in the calf. Okay, so you might find it's perfect right where you're at. You might need to shift the belt higher on the bottom of the foot. It might be lower towards the heel. It might be smack down in the center, or you don't really care where it is, but it feels like a good stretch. And that's enough. Okay, so let your eyes close. Connect to the sensation through the right leg in the back. And see if you can experience just as it is. Not trying to make it more, maybe even make it less. Maybe you slide your hands down and the foot shifts a little forward, or you wiggle your waist side to side. And usually you adapt the left leg, so it could be bending and it could be extending. Decide what feels better in your back. Okay. Now here's an interesting pattern with our hips. So if I just close my eyes and just kind of get into creating a little bit more comfort by relaxing and feeling. When I open up my eyes, I notice, oh, my foot's a tiny bit turned out. My hip balance is greater. My leg is farther forward. Okay, so we're going to set into a crossover. And let's feel the reach of the foot to the left now. So you're going to let the left leg relax down. You're going to take the belt together with your left hand holding it. And when you pull, let the right arm relax out. And then cross the right leg to the left. I guess saying going to the left is too quick of a description because you'll go left, you go quickly. But start to let the leg cross over. And you could keep it straight and you could bend it a little bit. I think what you might want to focus on here is the experience of the root of the leg, which in this moment for me is my hip. If I was standing, it would be my foot. But right now it's rooted in my hip. So I want to keep my lower back area centered, not twisting. I'm not so worried about the leg rotating and shifting, but I want to keep centered in my waist. Okay, and so it's a leg enhancement, right? It's in the hip. It's a hip enhancing pose, not big twister. Okay, now hopefully you got some room around you because this will be nice to have the adductor stretching. Most of us could use adductor stretch. So when you come back up, let's bring the left hand to that frontal left hip bone. And then as the right leg stretches or just releases out, it might not be a word stretching out, mine gets stuck on the wall, but when I bring the left knee up and hold onto that knee and stretch it out, then I can balance out this circulation on the inner thigh. So try to keep it balanced. Now let's say you're stuck against a wall space. You can let the leg that's out, the foot that's out, you can let that try to stretch a little farther back. But it's not how flexible you are, it's the circulation balance on each inner leg, the groins, right? Enhancing that flow of lymph, so inverting. And let gravity have you here for a few more motions. It might feel like motions of breath. It might feel like a sensation in the legs that's increasing. Let's keep it in this pattern of out. So we'll grab the belt with the left hand and we'll stretch the right leg back center, then step the left foot, stepping the foot sounds kind of funny, but step it upside down. Okay, let the feet push out wide so you are creating similar experience right through the inner leg, but you might even explore really pushing it out. You might have it closer, and probably the knees will know the most, right? So if I push it too far out, but then the inside line of my knee feels like it's pulling in, it's just not the appropriate angle for my bones. So feel that you're pushing with your feet, right? You're pulling and you're pushing. So we get to do both actions in the body. Everything all at once. Okay, now if the feet are pushing out, they're not turning, like it's not like the foot and the ankle has turned out, right? It's not going to work in your ankle bones anyhow. But we all know cobbler's pose, right? And it's a kind of different angle. So when you come back into center with your feet between sides, I want you to bend through the knees. Take the feet out of the belt for a moment. Take reclining cobbler's pose. So feet together, knees out. This is probably a little advanced pattern because the bolster is right under the pelvis. So it's kind of promoting that circulation. And you might go, this isn't so bad. I mean, we've done this with different angles with the bolster underneath us. Sometimes you have the bolster quite high under the back for this one. But this might feel like it's a nice even hip connection. What I have to do so my back feels comfortable entirely is to improve the movement of my ribs with my breath. And that's getting better. It's definitely taking time, a lot of time, to get my respiratory muscles stronger by practice. Lots of patience. Okay, now feel if your feet are touching. I can't imagine you could put a block between them right now. That would be a little tough. But I want you to feel if you could just scoot one foot a little bit out, the other foot a little bit away from so the feet separate a tiny bit. See if you can keep moving with the rib space. The best you can. There's a little space between the feet. Okay, and now with care, you want to feel the pelvis press down, the knees positioned back up so the feet might smush together a little bit. Lift the left leg and then feel when the leg draws towards your waist. You'll take the belt under the left foot and stretch the right leg down. Okay, simple. So push and pull. Good action. You know, one side might feel different in your back. You know, the connection of the left side of the spine might have a different connection to the left hamstring as far as your comfort levels. But I like to notice the sheer awareness on the inside of my knee on one side versus the other, and then trying to keep a balance of pushing and pulling. You know, not to hurt my knee, but to feel the extension, how much I need to micro bend. If you feel a shakiness up in your hip, like a real subtle shakiness, try to stay solid with your focus. And of course, back off if your body needs to. Right leg can bend instead of descend. You choose. But let's continue for a few moments to stretch the left leg, the calf. If you pull the leg farther back, it's going to be a little more full leg, you know, not just calf. I feel when my leg goes back quite a bit into my lower leg, when it's straight up vertical or a little forward, feels primarily below the knee. I imagine we're all a little different with this. So the right leg lowers down, and now close off the belt and reach for it with your right hand. Be casual with the left arm, just let it open. And start the crossover of the left leg to the right. Yeah, try to keep the left foot from turning out excessively or turning in. You likely would pivot in more on this one. Okay, so when the leg crosses, the right foot could be flexed, the right foot could be passive. But don't overdo it. And then you can feel that right hip bone centered versus twisting, the bottom hip. Left hip is crossing. It's a real crossover, isn't it, this one? So the ribs have to have some work to do to stay centered and kind of the sense of the back flat. And do the work. Your left knee could be a little bendy. It could be extendy. You decide. You know, once that right hand is exhausted, bring the leg back in. A little bit of pressure through your hand, I know. So switch off the left hand to hold the belt. Now, when I reach my right hand down for the front of the right hip bone, my guidance is to let the back of the pelvis center on the bolster, slide the right foot in without letting my left leg drop back. A little tricky. Pelvis is connected here. So as your right foot lifts up, you're going to hold on to the knee with your right hand and let the left leg move out. Let both legs stretch out. I think last time we started with the leg out first and then we got a hold of the knee. So you might find this a little bit more meditative. And if it's a real tremor in the hip, you know, this is a lot of work. You might let the leg be a little higher up, the left leg. You might find the right leg bending moves out easier than the straight left leg. So this would be a reason to do reclining pose with knees to chest and then let the knees kind of move out and rock side to side. Even though that seems like an easy thing to do, it's a good practice. It's a good habit to, I guess, get on your back and roll around. You know, feeling where the pelvis is centered. Breathe. We're getting the legs quite balanced here. And then as the right leg, you release the grip on the knee, then bring the knee center as the left leg is drawn into the middle, move right foot up into the belt. So feel both feet about hips distance, tug on the belt. Okay, now when the feet push out, okay, go for your kind of maximum width where you feel the side of the foot push into the belt versus trying to push up, up, up. You're pushing out, out, out. Okay, and if the knees seem to kind of twist in, your work is on turning the feet out. I want you to be careful that the knee isn't turning in. I just can't think that would be any good for us, right? With our knee and hip collaborations. So you don't have to do a big turnout like a ballet turnout. That's not what I'm emphasizing. But I don't want you to pivot the toes in. Okay, interesting part of this would be is if you didn't have your belt, huh? That would be a panic. Okay, so the belt's nice to have. Now, when you bend through the legs, go slow. We're moving on, I promise, but go slow. Bend the legs and just notice the knees twist in. We don't want twisting knees. That just sounds bad, doesn't it? Twisting knees. Okay, see how much you need to slide your feet in to keep that strength into the inner legs. Okay, now bend the knees and bring them to the chest, and the belt goes away. And hold on to the knees, and I want you to circle. So the knees are going to go out and around. Well, it's actually the very inner hip that goes out and moves, but just circular pattern. So I hold the knees and I circle outwards, and I can go inwards too. I can go both directions. Okay, hip circling. All right, now knees squeeze in, and then as you push away, I want you to keep the resistance that you're pushing into the knees, well, maybe above the knees, that some of us don't like to push our patellas, and have some resistance against your hands. Okay, then let the feet flop down, and we'll roll to the left. If you have a block below you, just be aware, because it might all of a sudden be pushing into you. But roll left and move the block behind you to your blankets. Slide down off the bolster. So you're kind of still nudged up to it, huh? Okay, so phase 2. We got through the first phase. Now, you'll need a sandbag nearby your right hand. So place it near your right hand, or actually probably on the next to your left knee is better instruction on that. But what the blankets will support you is for the side of your head. Now, most of us, if we lie on our back, we are getting used to that by now, although it seems kind of like you've done that for a while, huh? But side stretching, I think, is a little different for our neck. So this isn't a pose where I really want my neck to drop very far. Okay, so when you do lean into your bolster is horizontal on your mat. So are the blankets, and then the block at the back. My left thigh is really flush with my bolster, right? I'm not on top of it. When I lean into my left arm, I'm going to use something. You can use a ball or block or nothing under the inside of that right knee, okay, or upper inner right leg. The blocks work fine for this. Now, when I lean down to the left side on the elbow between the bolster and the blankets, I'll get my sand. If you have anything to put on the side, use it onto the side bands. It's going to go across this way, or it can go horizontal. It doesn't matter really. It matters to you probably. Okay. So once you align this area that we've just been working on with the legs upside down, there's a reason for the sand to the hip. Now I can feel my head is pretty good if I tilt it a little bit back with the blanket this high. But if I really kind of dunk into my blanket, be sure that it just feels okay in your neck. So if you feel like your neck is tightening to hold the position, then you would take a blanket and just fold it one more time. Okay, that's if you feel your neck gripping. I suppose some of us, if we made the blanket too high, we would actually create more grip too. So develop that inner awareness of the alignment of the side sage pose. And part of the alignment in this pose is to kind of surrender into the props. Yeah, so you're just leaning down to that left side, the left shoulder, it's kind of squished in. So I don't have this range of motion where my left arm is way between stretching through. I feel like it does kind of help stretch my shoulders though. So let the spine center on its side and feel the movement of the breath lengthening through the ribs. Nice, letting your eyes relax. Feel the weight into that left hip. Now, before you leave the pose, be sure that the weight of your head is relaxing. That might mean you turn a little bit down to the left. Now, that doesn't mean your arm has to stay up at all. It doesn't have to be overhead. It could be on the side. The shoulders still shrugging a little back. You know, those of us that have the arm overhead want you to join the rest of us that have our arm down by the side. So it's on the side of my body versus kind of on my bolster. Unless that hurts you, right? Then you would put it where it's comfortable, right? Maybe it is on your bolster. But when you do feel that body weight into that left, right towards the spleen, circulation deepens. Okay, it's nice to have the arm in this position sometimes. So when you slide the sand away, we're going to go into a motion pattern for our spine. Front of the spine and back spine. So when you rotate to the left and down, use your hands. Well, I hope you are. Use your hands and let's move the ball away, but come around to hands, knees. If you need a blanket under your knees, just take a towel or blanket and place it right across under the knees. Otherwise, we'll join so that the palms are pressing. Now, the floor push into the hands is interesting at our shoulders. So let the feet relax. They could be kind of close to each other, toes touching, the big toes, but they could be apart. And then round your back so there's flexion between. And arch through the spine. Okay, now feel the alternating path of movement of the spine, rounding. Now, if your feet are like they just can't resist touching each other, you can always put a block between them, right? You could just take your block wide and place it between the feet. And that's kind of helpful for me in my spine. It just balances out both sides of the pelvis a little bit because you get into these imbalanced habits, even if they're really subtle. Okay, let's take a couple more of these motions, rounding the spine. I know it's real simple. Okay, now next time you kind of fall into the arch, let's take our bolster on top of the blanket or blankets and stretch out the chest. Now, if this doesn't work for you, it might not for everybody. Then I want you to walk your hands over to the right side. And then in the next few moments, you'll walk them over to the left side. Okay, so if it doesn't work for you to have that lift, taking a little bit of a stretch through the armpit chest with the hands on the ground might work better for some people's shoulders, okay? It's a little less invasive, right, on the hinge, a rotator cuff as well, I find. This is a little intense. But if it works, I would go for it for your breathing muscles. Okay, head is between, of course, even if your hands are going side to side. Okay, and then let's meet so that the bolster is now center. Okay, and then hands pressed down. Now, take a moment where you're in puppy position. So you let your toes hook under, you lift your knees up, but you're halfway to dog pose. So just halfway. puppy pose. Okay. Or wandering toddler, whichever it is, but lift up so that the heels are up and the sitting bones are set back. Okay, now lower down through the knees. Arch the spine, chest forward, head moves forward and up, eyes lift towards the ceiling, stretch them out. A little eye stretching. Flexible eyes. Okay, come back in center. It kind of stretches your face a bit when you do that. All right, let's take side stage on the other side, on the right hip. So we'll move into the center, wrists, get a little break here. Okay, so position the left leg to stretch back, the ball on the inside. And then you'll lean into this right side and take some care with your sand arriving on the left side. Okay. Yeah, it's simple stuff, but it's somewhat complex. Each of these experiences from one side to the next, and you might notice, oh, my head tilt's different. I have habits, you know, so it's easier for myself. So you want to remark on each of the sides over and over again. So feel that right side. Okay. Then let the left arm reach. Bend the right knee. It's important to have the right leg really close to the bolster. And let's say the arm doesn't do this pattern. Use the bottom right leg, right? So it really pulls up next to it, not on top, right? But it's next to the bolster. Use that to help stretch out through the side of the spine. And you know, all of this works its way into the shoulders anyway, even if I don't do any excitable moves with my arm, I'm still getting the bottom leg to pull up, and that's stretching that right side of my back all the way up into the arm. So I let my right arm be very passive. I'm not really forcing it to reach at all. You let center the waist onto the side and feel the movement of the ribs with the breath. You know, if your arm is reaching, breathe responsibly so you're holding motion, right? You're not holding motion, that doesn't go together, but you're creating that mobility throughout the breath, both in and out breath. So you alternate and feel the weight into the side. It's both creating the side that's expressing and the side that's resting, right? It's like that. It's definitely a balance game, isn't it? For letting go and experiencing the breath. It's both sides. You know, noticing the weight into the bolster. Let the left arm lower down. Okay, now this left side is going to be getting pretty exuberant here coming up. There's going to be quite a bit of work here on this left side. Okay, so when you let the sand, I would let it go, let it drop to the left. Okay, and then when you roll to the right, see if you can let your rolling be, you know, you got the bolster here on the ribs for a reason. And I know ribs are, maybe you think they're a little bit more sensitive than like a hip and a pelvis, because that seems like it's got a different bone structure or density, right? Rib density is a little different, huh? But it's got the breathing muscles in it. So it has possibilities to improve on different levels. So feel when you roll that the rolling be in the ribs. Unless you got a rib that's out, right? You have to be a little careful, but you're gonna roll to the right, slide the left leg towards the right. Now when you come up, let's turn to this front of our mat space, or maybe you're looking at the screen, but you're gonna go forward And you're going to center yourself so that the right leg stretches out and the left foot guides towards, I would say towards the right leg is plenty. You don't have to touch your leg with your left foot. You could probably do this one. Here, let's get some blocks. You could do this also with your left foot on a block, right? So it's a lot easier for me on my knee. Just kind of, remember it's one shape at a time. It doesn't have to be like, oh, how will this work in the next pose? But, you know, feel out, putting your sand on this left thigh, and then getting your belt. Once you're stuck on your bolster, you might have to get back up again. Okay, get a belt, get a sandbag. If you need anything under a knee, if your foot is on the ground, you probably might use a ball under your left knee, okay? I'm just gonna play with this idea because I like to follow these kind of Iyengar modalities sometimes. Just see what happens. So my right leg is reaching towards about 1 o'clock on the right side. It's not that far out in like a big leg excursion. But what's going to be a little more emphasis is the belt under the right foot. So you're going to bend the knee and then push into the leg reaching out 1 or 2 o'clock, no farther out. Now, hold the belt on the inside of the right leg. So you're going to reach for it with the right hand. You probably can't see with my left foot in the way, but okay. So you'll reach for it with the right hand and bend the right elbow. You probably can't see any of this, but bend the right elbow, lean into the right leg and let the left arm reach behind your back to twist. So be a little cautious here about the lumbar, the low back, and its blend of movement into the thoracic vertebrae. So when you're pulling, and I think I want to try this with this block. I think this is a little better balance for my, it feels better for my back. So noticing prop support, right? The props are there to support you and to assist your, structural awareness, I think too. They kind of lift you up. This is a little intense, right? With my foot up for my hip, I'm noticing. Okay, so get a feel for what works for you. Give it a few more moments, but lean to the right. So you're tipping right. But now I want you to pull firm with the right hand. And then when you lift up, crown of the head, spine lifting, straightening up, it feels like in your back. You're going to go ahead and hold your belt, which holds your foot, and then bend the knee. So my hand is on the inside of my right leg. And then I'm going to move my right leg straight forward. Okay, for me, my left knee is kind of bobbing up a little bit. I'm going to put something under it, like a bobbing knee. Okay, hold on to the belt with both hands into heron pose and let the leg lift up. Now, up is this for me. This is up. Some of you, up is probably your foot towards your face or something, but find what's a reality where I like it when I'm kind of on the edge with my position on the bolster. I feel like at any moment I could Humpty Dumpty off of it, but I'm perched on the back of my sit bones, mostly my right one. So feel if you can get to both sitting bones now. See if you can let the leg move forward so you're not on just one sitting bone, but two. I know you're on two, but you feel the two. Lift up the chest. This is the workout, is lifting the chest here. No little itty bitty rounding, but moving the chest forwards and centering up. Okay, bend the right knee, lower the foot down. Remember, all these twists and moves on the knee are important to refine, so try to avoid that. Right when the foot comes down, the knee is pointed upwards, it's not twisting in. And then take the belt off. And this time you're going to choose your twist. You get twist choices. Okay, so first option would be I relax my right foot on a block and I keep all my things just like they are, the ball and all, and I turn right. Yeah, this is a nice broad feeling twist. Now, the second option is to remove anything under my left knee and cross my right foot over the left leg so the foot is on the ground. Hook the left arm to the right leg and turn. Yeah, this seems like the the professional way to do it. I know you probably think that's the pro way to do it, but what you want to work with is feeling this mid body can move with the breath. So I don't want you to feel like you're stuck and you can't be there for more than 20 seconds, right? So you want to be somewhere you can be a good 10 to 15 breaths. This one I still have to work on my sitting bones so I don't fall over. So turn to the right, wherever you're off to, with your leg pieces, right? And use the sand on the left inner leg if you have it. And feel how the ribs center. And on the exhalation path, they twist to the right. Relax your eyes. That might tip your chin down a little bit, but keeping the face calm. That seems to be a natural gesture, right? When the eyes close, is there's more of a forward motion than a backward motion. Okay, before you come out, give the shoulder a chance to get something out of this. So the right shoulder. So I try to just move it back. Not shrug it, but just move it back. Okay, now come back forward. Okay, take the sand to the right thigh. So let's say you have your foot crossed over, uncross it, and then put your feet so they're both on the floor. Right leg cross forward to left, sand on right thigh. Take the left leg out. I'm going to put a ball under my right knee, and we're going to the second side. So I'm trying to keep this intertwined motion pretty symmetrical after all. So belt to the left foot is out to about 11 o'clock-ish on that side. And when you grab the belt, feel how the waist this time is shifting to the right. So see if you can let your rib cage shift versus the lumbar having this big torque and twist. And some of us, it's kind of angsty when that gets going. So hold on to the belt, bend your left arm and lean. Now use any props. If you want to use your ball under your left knee or your block, use it, or your blanket. That's kind of cozy. But bend the left elbow and feel this lower right quadrant of the waist. Now, for me, I don't need to bend my left elbow that much to feel that, but I like the connection of arm to leg personally, and the foot flexing. Okay, so feel the waist turn, pull, breathe, and feel how the rotation is through the waistband. Now, you don't have to protect your back by holding it. This seems a little elementary, I'm sure, but you could let the arm stretch to the left. But I'm liking this holding the back area zone for this moment. This feels pretty helpful. And I'm trying to get my breath in this area of my hand, which is a little tricky. So slowing down, maybe feel for your breath. However else it looks isn't that important. It's that you can feel your breath. Okay, now pull with the left hand and then press down to your sitting bones and lift the crown of your head to the ceiling. Slide the left hand on the belt to accommodate that movement. And then move the left leg forward of your navel, so straight in front. Hold the belt. Now, some of us need to bend our left knee probably to get here. So you have to do protective measures, I think, for your back on this one. So when I guide it from to the left side to center and up, I start to walk the hands towards the foot and then aim so the chest is centered. The leg is lifted. And feel that right thigh in its motion out. It might be kind of minimal, to feel the hip opening. It's kind of funny because this used to be kind of maybe when you started practice was basic awareness of hip opening was to sit kind of cross-legged. And now it isn't even really a feeling if you move your knee out and you're sitting that it's a hip opener. kind of on the next layer, but keep in mind this is one. Okay, now when I move my spine up, it doesn't maybe appear much is occurring, but I'm working on belly motion with the breath. Pull and lift. And then bend your left knee. And then get ready for your seated twist. So you're going to go, okay, the choices were left foot across the right knee to the floor. The choice for some of us was the left foot on the block in front. So I would just put my block smack dab flat forward of my right foot and then bring the left foot to relax on it, just like my right foot is relaxing. It's no different, it's just higher. And then I turn to the left. So see if this feels like your back has a nice broadness to it. I can feel it on both of these. So if I move my item under my right knee away and I scoot my right foot closer to my bolster. Now keep in mind when the left leg crosses, it's okay if your foot's a little bit turned in, a little bit sickled, because what you want to emphasize is that it's safe for your knee and sitting on the bolster is making it easier, right? This height is easing our experience for our hip. It's also bringing the floor up and balancing the hip. So let the ribs shift forward, right arm to left leg, and then rotate. Yeah, this feels pretty good. I can feel the balance on both hips as long as I stay centered on my left sitting bone and don't kind of fall into the right side. So you choose whether your foot is on a block. Yep, you might start to shift your sitting bone back when you do that. But whichever is more pleasant, I would go with that, if you can call it pleasant. So press into the arm, into the leg, and then feel where there's turn. Small degree, isn't it? So as the spine centers, the rotation, so creating more space between the vertebrae. This is one way we do it. Natural curve in the back. And noticing the breath pace. Try to relax on your own. Feel how you pin the leg a little bit with that right arm, even if you hold the leg or you hook the elbow. You're kind of pinning a bit into the muscle seam on the side. And that's something we're going to have to work with really soon because it's probably feeling kind of gripped up, all this hip strength. So when you come back center, okay, this time we don't have to move our sand anywhere. We got to take it away. So take the sand away and moving any block to the side. And then take both legs out in front, shake it out, do a little bit of tapotement, which would be I still the legs, they get still, and then I tap them. I use the pull slap of the hand. Try to go to the side, upper hip area, get really high up into the hip, and then making little fists, and you can make a little faster beat. Okay. Stay up into those hips with the hand pressing. Okay, and now we'll use the hands back on the bolster, bend the knees, and then swing the knees over to the side, and let's come to a wall. So I want your bolster to be, it can be anywhere near your wall, because we'll use it when we get onto our back. But first things first, if you need a blanket under your knees, use it now. If you don't really use a blanket under your knees, then don't use it for this. There's no reason you would add it. But if you do feel more comfortable, use blanket, okay? All right, this ball just wants to do what balls do. Okay, rolls onto me. Okay, get some blocks in the front and naturally stretch your hands out wide. Your feet touch the wall. Push into your feet and stretch out the front of the legs. Lift up into the natural swoop. Okay. Keep that lift. Now I want you to lower down your belly, push into your feet, okay? Actually, I don't think we'll do that one. So we'll push the hands forward and keep a real nice length into your back. So you're going to feel, if you don't have a blanket on your knees, quite a bit of front body energy. So keep lengthening, pushing your arms into your hands, right? So the focus is in hands. Okay, now as you slide your hands back so they're under the shoulders, elbows by your sides, feel the movement of the ribs. This whole area we've been breathing into, we're now touching down into the firm ground. And so when you push your feet into the wall, lift the knees up, the feet touch the wall, you're at the base still, your knees are up. Inhale, lift naturally in locust. Exhale, center back down. Now knees touch down to the ground of the blanket. Push your hands a little farther back by the sides. And you're gonna lift up into the arch, come back into table. And then as you hook the toes or under, you're gonna lift the knees up and stretch the heels downwards. And if they touch the ground besides the wall, that's fine. If you prefer them a little bit up at the wall, that's my preference, a little bit up. And then that gives me more inversion, so more circulation to my face. Just a little bit of lift of my heels. Now let your head nod a little side to side. Push the floor away. Okay, take a step forward with your left foot. And then I want you to, if you need your block or blocks, you're going to move it over to the right side. You're going to turn to the right. So you're in a wide stance. So you got both feet have more of a turning in angle than a turning out because of this wall next to your right foot. But you can either have your hands stretching forward on the ground, the hips reaching back, or you can hold the ankles and let your elbows stretch out, the crown of your head to the floor. Okay, so you choose if your hips are lifting, I want you to feel where the weight is at your feet, at your heels. So feel the lift of the hips, feel the elbows wide, weight of the head down. Now, if your head does touch down, touch it, right? So if you found, oh, I can get my head to the floor, then you go there. If you have a blanket, you could put it under your head. Now walk the hands forward, and I want you to bring your hands, if you need a block to help you up, that's fine, but you're gonna bring your hands up to your hips and then come up and turn to your wall. So that means your right foot turns to the wall too, and then step the right foot back and push into the wall and stretch out your back. So both hands push, stretch the chest, simple wall push. That's why we need the wall, we need to push it. Okay, let the hips kind of hang in there a little bit. You don't need to exaggerate the movement of the hips back. What I'm really feeling is my chest stretching here in my back. Okay, walk the feet in towards the wall and then get your bolster and you're gonna toss it down next to the wall at the base. And then come on down to sit. And let's take a blanket behind us. Make the blanket so it's very flat, right? So if you have a little towel, that might even be better than this blanket because this has more height than some of us need. But let's take it so that we bring our feet on top of the bolster and then push into your feet. So when you lower down, usually your push is in more in your hips. So I want you to keep this connection of pushing down into your feet, even while you're trying to figure this out. Okay, pushing down into the feet. So how distant I am from the wall is going to be kind of interesting. So bring your feet to the wall, up at the wall, and then kind of notice the sense of angle in your pelvis. Can you feel the back of your pelvis centered? Right, you're not overly arching. Okay, so you might push a little bit back for those of you that are pretty tall. You might notice when now you put your feet on your bolster, you're going to push down into your feet and your elbows and lift up the hips. Okay, stretch your arms overhead, nothing between the knees. And then lower the spine and let the arms flow down as the hips center to the ground. Okay, add a block or ball between the knees so your lower back can widen here. So you're gonna push into your, well, actually, you gotta make sure you can actually push into it, huh? So this might take an energy. So maybe without your feet on the bolster, take a moment when you're pushing into the blocker ball. So you know it's measurably in, you can push into it. So now when your feet are down on the bolster, you're going to push into the blocker ball and then relax the push. So you just use it as a spacer. And now if it's a block, you would want it to be pretty narrow. Right? You don't want it to be wide. You want it to be at the smallest setting. Now, pushing down into your feet, lift up the hips and reach your hands towards the bolster. No, they're not going to touch your bolster, but that's the direction of the fingers. Okay. Now keep that lift to the hips. Feel the weight back in the shoulders. Okay. Palms now open towards the ceiling, so the shoulders kind of roll out a little bit. Palms are open. Push down to your feet, lift the hips. Okay. Now there's always further to go. So what I want you to do is lower the spine. Okay, center the hips down. Really working on bring the knees to your chest, circle. So making rotations, the hands are still open. Go both directions, circling. And then last time, this time when your feet push down, let there be a spacer. So don't try to grip into the ball or block, but lift the hips up. And then as the arms are down by the sides, you want to bring the shoulders to roll down and in. That may barely do anything. I know, don't exaggerate it, just let it be, however it happens to be. And then noticing the lower back to the back of the pelvis, the glutes. Okay, push so that the hips get a lot of work out here. And then as you lower the spine down, okay, we're going to bring the knees to the chest and then find where your sand is. Remove the ball. Those of you that have a ball, I want you to do a little glute massage. So you put the ball under your left glute, massage it side to side. Those that don't have a ball, go with windshield wiper. So if you don't have a ball, feet on the bolster, knees go side to side. That's no problem. Don't use a block in lieu of the ball, because that wouldn't go anywhere, would it? It wouldn't roll. So those with the glute massage go to the other side. Okay, underneath the right buttock. So I would just put it underneath, and I'm using the glide of the body across the ball to massage the tissues, right? So the connective tissue. So it's a nice balance of the pressure and the movement that creates the massage into the glute. So you just let the ball be there and you massage across it, across those tissues. So it's more of a glide. Okay, now once you come back to center, after you've windshield wipered away, if you're not with that, kick the bolster to the right side of your mat and take the left leg to cross over to the bolster. Add a ball to the sacrum if you have it, if not, no worries. Okay, and then taking a sandbag to the left outer leg. Okay, so use that sand towards the knee. If the leg doesn't touch on the bolster and it's kind of lifting up and tremoring, then you would put a blanket on top of the bolster. Okay, some more padding under your left leg. And then open the left arm and turn your head to the left. And notice if turning is what you would think that is. Is it opening the chest that helps you rotate? Does it have to be a specific turn, or can you simply center the brain over to the left and relaxing the face? In these last couple poses here, just noticing where the movement is in the chest, and then the crossover of the leg for the movement in the hip. Bring your head back in center. Move the sand. And take a moment between sides to set your pelvis on its back. Feel both feet. And let it be kind of easygoing with the feet. Don't get too pressurized. Just feel them centered, hips distance. Then move the bolster to the other side. You might shift to the side of your mat a little bit. So you have just a greater range to cross the right leg over to the bolster. So one habit you might be finding yourself getting into with this is naturally curling the left hip under, so you get an easier range with the left leg, or sorry, the right leg to the bolster. So if I don't have that twist under with my right hip, I can't get my leg down as far on the bolster. So you might find all these interesting habits that are good, some good ones, some that you're just tricking yourself into sensing more flexibility, right? That you're enabling a part of the back you might want to be careful with. But if it feels like, oh, this is getting a little bit more stretch in my ribs, I think it's great. This one I like a little more height under my head, actually. Last side, I can notice that. A little more height under my head. Okay, so you choose height under your head with your blanket, make it a higher fold or not, and then turn the waist to the right. Notice if parts of the waist are going left, parts are going to the right. More for me is going left. Then I'm working on my lungs to get that rotation. Left hand could be anywhere, it could be lightly touching onto the body. And feel the movement of your breath. You know, sense how simple the breathing is in this flat position, chest open. Okay, now when you move the ball and shift your sand, you're going to push the sand towards the wall. Good luck. Roll left, push hands to come up, and then move your bolster. So you'll sense the breath now with the hips up. So gravity is going to assist your exhalation. So when you come into this position, I think it's kind of a nice one for my breathing muscles. And I'm going to sit closest to the wall. So you want to lean into one side of the bolster. You have your sitting bones, not your hip, but your sitting bones to the wall. So you're kind of in the extremes, okay? Now when you lean down into the hip that you're on the side of, which if I'm on the right side of the bolster, my left hip, I'm going to swing the legs upside down and then use my hands on the side of the bolster to push it down and then shift my hips in the center. That's how sometimes it works. It's not always the same. So you do what you can to get the bolster under your pelvis. Place the blanket so it supports your neck. It has a natural curve, but it's not pushing into your shoulders. Okay. And then once this work is in the ribs and the breathing muscles, you might find that your sand on your feet deepens that. It makes the breath force a little different. You can tell when you have sand. For me, it feels more grounding now, like I like it. But it does increase that volume in the workout in your diaphragm, because now it has more resistance. It's got a whole other 10 pounds, or however heavy your bag is. But as the weight intensifies on the breathing muscles, some of you might not notice it anymore, but feel some space at the heels. Even if your toes are closer, your top of your foot's closer than your heels, that's great. Let the balance become obvious in your spine, so it flows back to the chest. Open the elbows or arms down by the sides. I prefer lower than the heart, because the purpose of this is to relax your heart and lower the blood pressure. But if you're using this pose to wake yourself up, you would probably have it elbows out, hands back. Like if it was a early morning position to get yourself going. Depends on where the arms are. So settle the movement of the ribs and the belly, softening those areas with the breath. And just notice if you could soften the ribs and their movement. And the alternating motion of the belly. Just clearing the passageway of your throat. Okay, now feel if it's easier for you with that full focus on the breathing, kind of lower in the rib area to the belly. That might be easier for your back. So using your breath, because it's movement, right? Breath is movement in the body. It's never still. So feel if you can give it permission to move around, and maybe you have to change its kind of radiant motion. It can either be upper lungs or lower lungs. And let your head roll to the right. And then right over to the other side, to the left. And feel if that rolling includes your trying to push. So you want to feel one more time each side, just letting it move, not trying to force back into the neck. Just feel it glide. Both sides. Come back into center and bend the knees. Shift the feet off the wall. And then bend them a little more so that you can feel that awareness upper back area. And then remove the sand and feel yourself kind of slide into knees to chest, guiding that awareness in the upper back. And so naturally roll to a side and let your hands push to help you come around to sit against the wall. So if your bolster was pushed a little bit away, then see if you can push it back so it can't go any closer. Okay. Finding the awareness on both sides of your back when the shoulders move to the wall. You can prop up the legs if you need to stuff some blankets under them or a block, or feeling kind of that buoyancy of the knees. And then as the hands guide up to meet in front of the heart, feeling where there's touch of the fingers, where there's that obvious position of the palms. So many parts to the hands and that connection back up into the lungs and the heart by the hands. So feel a very slight force of motion of your head bowing down and surrendering to your heart center. And let's unite our focus together in this collective, breathing into the space behind the heart.